Hi, Laura. Welcome to the Autism Little Learners podcast. Can you,
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? I know I do an intro before we start, but I love to hear it from you too.
Yes. Okay. So I am a clinical pediatric occupational therapist. Though I'm no longer in the clinic, I still very much use that clinician hat in my online quote practice. I focus all of my time now on creating content for parents, other educators, other therapists, really to help everyone understand what neurodiversity means and how we can support neurodivergent individuals in a way that's respectful towards them and is affirming of their needs by using sensory regulation strategies. One of my favorite things to teach parents from the get-go is that every single behavior that you see in your child stems from their nervous system. So that's something that I preach about in as many different ways as possible on Instagram, on my podcast, on my website. Um, I myself am a neurodivergent parent to a neurodivergent daughter, and we have very similar neurotypes. So that has been a really actually helpful, advantageous journey because we're kind of walking each other along this, and I'm guiding her through it, but learning a lot about myself through her and learning a lot about her through my own experiences and having a lot of those, oh, this is what she must feel like. And then so in turn, I think that that makes me a better educator and parent coach on the same topic. So I have both the personal and professional experience with supporting neurodivergent individuals. And something personal, something fun about myself, I am a Disneyland fanatic. I go a lot. I bring my daughter to Disneyland. She's my Disney bestie. And we are also very, very passionate Swifties. So I'm one of those adults who is very into Disneyland and Taylor Swift. So you can always catch me talking about one of those things at any given point.
Okay, I love that. We have this in common. I'm a major Swiftie too, and have been for a long time. And I think I was trying
Yes.
to figure out recently what year it was that I saw her. She was at a country festival in the middle of Wisconsin in the early
Oh, wow.
2000s, and she was newish. She was a teenager still, and she was like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the
Oh
lineup.
my
So she was
gosh, like
new.
way early days. Like they
Yeah.
were still handing out her like guitar picks. I remember
Yes.
they used to hand those out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my friend and
OG, I
I,
love it.
totally OG, my friend and I, my best friend, we were like, we love her. She's going to go
Yes.
somewhere. We love her. And then just when the Eras tour started streaming, I had a Swiftie
Yeah.
party at my house
Oh,
for my niece, and my daughter was here, who's, 26 years old now. And we had all the things like sunglasses, and we made friendship bracelets.
oh,
So yeah, we are the same.
that makes me so happy to hear. That just you always know you're in good company when you know you have an OG Swiftie near
Right.
you.
Right. I just need to someday score tickets to the Eras tour. That would be amazing because I've seen her
You
like five
have to
times.
go.
Did you?
You have to go. I did go. I went
Oh,
twice.
oh my gosh. Okay, I got to dig
I
it.
just can't get enough. I can't get enough.
Well, we could talk this whole time about Swifty stuff because I mean, you
Yes.
enter in Travis Kelsey and all that. I could go on, but we're here to talk about OT stuff like
Yes.
sensory and interoception. And so I noticed on your platform on Instagram, you talk a lot about interoception. And I know that some educators still haven't heard about this term or what it means, or they maybe have some confusion about it. Can you explain what interoception means?
Yes, happily. I have been talking a lot about this lately because I call it the missing link to emotional regulation. And as caregivers, as educators of neurodivergent kids, emotional regulation is probably one of the top um, areas of need that these kids need support with. And we spend a lot of time teaching kids feelings, words, and noticing facial expressions. And yes, that is absolutely something that's important. But I think that the piece that a lot of parents and educators are missing is understanding the interoception piece, which is really what drives a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing around emotions. So, interoception is one of the eight senses, um, and it is responsible for informing our brain of internal sensations. So, if you think about when you feel hungry and you feel your tummy rumbling, that's interoception. When you notice the little when you notice the signs that you have to go potty, that is interoception. When you can feel your heart racing without putting your hand on your chest, that's interoception. When you are on that roller coaster and your tummy drops, that's interoception. So there's all those internal sensations, and it's really important for informing our brain about the state of our physiological state. So we know when we're sick, when we're in pain, when we're in discomfort, when we're overheating, when we're hungry, when we have to pee, when we're too full. Very, very important for daily tasks, as you can tell. So the other piece to interoception, though, is as I mentioned, those things like heart rate, those like funny feelings in your tummy. Um, every emotion that we experience as humans has an emotion, has a interoception sensation that's linked to it. Some of us notice them, some of us don't notice them. Some of them us notice them more intensely. So when someone feels nervous, and you might experience it as like butterflies in your tummy. Someone else might experience that as feeling like dinosaurs in your tummy, or like someone really wringing out their tummy. And so I often see that neurodivergent kids can either be like super sensitive to these interoception sensations, where those tummy feelings or their heart racing feels so intense that it actually triggers more of a fight or flight component for them. And there are other neurodivergent individuals who have such a high threshold for interoception, meaning they require more of it for them to notice it, that they might miss those interoception sensations and therefore may react differently or not as you might expect to certain emotional situations, um, or they might miscommunicate or completely not notice any sort of internal cues um, that are related to interoception.
Gosh, you explain it so well. Like I'm gonna shout it from the rooftops. Everybody needs to listen to this because the way you explain it is so uh, kind of in layman's terms, but also you start thinking of students you've had or kids that you've served or yourself as you're explaining it. I'm thinking of one of my very first kindergartners that I had who is autistic. He's 30 years old now. But his mom said one of the first things, I'll always remember this, the first things they noticed besides a language delay was that he'd be outside playing in the snow in Wisconsin and he wouldn't have mittens on, or all of a sudden all his winter clothes would be off and he didn't seem bothered by it at all. And it makes me think of that.
Yes, exactly. So there's so many things. Once you learn about it, you'll start seeing it more in daily life and how important it is and how impactful it is. I think because I'm someone who is hypersensitive to interoception, it's a benefit for me to be able to describe these things a lot. And my daughter is as well. So we definitely harness that and we focus on those almost more than the actual emotions themselves. And that's helped tremendously with a lot of the regulation stuff that comes up for us.
Yeah. I think about too, I read that you said you and your daughter both are really sensitive to sounds. And
Yeah.
I am the same way. My husband is always like, you could hear a mouse in a field a mile away. But I'm
Yeah.
someone too where uh, I put a piece of bread in the toaster. I may be multitasking while it's toasting. And when it pops, I jump. And it's like, I know I put that in
Same.
there, but
Same. The
okay.
startle response is so real. I had a really bad one the other day. I actually like slapped my husband's like shoulder. I literally said,
Oh,
oh my God," like multiple times and like hit him shoulder and he was like, "What just happened?" I was just so in the zone doing something and thinking about something. And I know my husband's home and he just
yeah.
was next to me and he like inhaled, he went like or something and I said, And it's just a running joke. And I'm like, it's my startle response. And my heart races. I get like hot flashes. My
Uh-huh.
stomach gets tight. It's a full physiological response. It's real.
I am totally laughing because I guess I've never thought of it in this way. I just feel like, what's wrong with me? Because my husband will walk upstairs and I know he's home, like you said.
Yeah.
And I don't hear him coming, and I can either sense him there or
Yes.
I'll hear some tiny sound. And this is my response. "Oh, you scared me."
Yes.
And he's like, of course I did. Of course I
Yes. My
did.
husband is like, he'll have to announce, he's like, I'm walking in the hall, and
But
he'll
then
like
that
knock on
scares
the
me.
walls. Well, so he's gotten better at it. And I'm like, you're joking, but that actually helps. I've had to even tell my daughter, and I'm like, because on the weekends she'll run from her room to my room, but like her little feet like thump so loud, and then she barges the door open, and I almost always go, like I have a startle like wake. So I had to tell her one day, and I said, babe, in the morning, I need you to just walk to the room and open the door quietly
Yeah.
and not startle mommy. And she goes, okay. But then I turned around and I go, but also don't just like show up in front of my face and just like be so close to my face. And she literally was like, okay, I don't know your body, so I don't even know what to do.
I don't know what you're
My husband
talking
was
about,
like,
Mom.
my husband was like, literally like, you're so confusing. I'm like, how do you not get it? It's just like make enough noise so I can know you're on your way,
Yes.
but not complete silence, like a cat that just shows up, but also not like barging in. Like there's a perfect
Yeah.
medium to this. How do you not get it?
Laura, I get you. And I'm going to make my husband
I love
listen to
it.
this because he's going to be like, wow, there is someone else like you. I can't believe it.
It's so
And
true.
so
It's
this
so
is
true.
related to interoception then?
So those internal sensations that we get from that feeling, that like when I get the gasp, when I go, like I feel my heart kind of like sink, and I do get like a hot flash, like a sense of like not really sweat, but I feel like almost the adrenaline. Like you can
Yeah,
just sense that, right? That
totally.
those sensations, that's interoception. The being startled by the sound is auditory,
Yeah.
right? And so, but for me, I know specifically I am startled by the sound, but I don't like what those internal sensations feel like when my stomach drops and when I can't catch my breath and I have to put my hand on my heart, and then it takes me like a couple minutes to come back down. That is the interoception piece that's trying to trigger my sympathetic nervous system, my fight or flight.
Mhm.
And I need to actively pause that by using my parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, by doing really slow exhales,
Yeah.
grounding techniques, all of that to really tell my nervous system, you're safe, you are scared, but this is not an emergency. You're not in
Yeah.
danger. And if
Yeah.
I couldn't access those tools, or if I was a child who didn't know, I would just spiral into sympathetic nervous system and have a meltdown or be completely dysregulated the rest of the day from one little
Yeah.
startle. And that can happen to so many of our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a good explanation because on the flip side, then I think of my husband, he doesn't get that feeling inside. I'm
Yeah.
guessing, you know? So,
My husband does it like every day. Something comes up where I'm like, wow, we really have different brains. Like that
yeah.
must be what is that like to not be concerned? Like anything. If even my daughter will say, "Mom," all automatically, I'm like, what? And he's like,
Oh,
why do you always think it's doom? I'm like, it's the tone of her voice. He's like, she
huh?
just called mom.
Yeah.
And then it's just the way that we process sound and body language and tone. And I've talked enough with my therapist and understand my body enough to know that I have a very hyperactive amygdala, which is a part of the brain that processes fear and emotion. And it's very hypervigilant, which is part of my anxiety.
Hmm.
So sensory things just are heightened. When you're hyper aware of things, you're going to notice things more. And then my body feels more stressed. So I'm constantly trying to bring my nervous system back down to a state of regulation. So I'm not
Oh,
always freaking out.
yeah. I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now because I literally was talking this week
I'm
about
just,
just
yeah,
when kids get older. So my kids are 26 and 29 now. And
yeah.
if they call me instead of text me, everything fires.
Immediate. What happened? Yeah,
Kids don't
I know.
now
Yep.
don't call.
Mm-mm. Like I know because my mom's the same as me. So I know if I call her and if the first word I say is mom, she'll say, what
Yeah.
happened? So I
Yeah.
have to be like, hey mom, how's it go? I have to like prep my tone. And I hear my husband call his mom and he always is like, mom. And she's like, what is it? Like, and she doesn't freak out. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, you can just, the way that you say mom panics me. And you're just calling
Yeah.
her to ask like what time she's getting there. I'm
Yes.
like,
Yes.
so different.
I can so relate. I love this. Okay, so switching gears to interoception and potty training specifically. I have
Yes.
a potty training mini course and
Yeah.
specifically for young autistic children or for parents and educators of young autistic children. And I do talk a little bit from what I've learned about interoception inside of that course, but specifically for potty training and recognizing that, what are the differences kids could have?
Yeah, so they could, just like any other sensation, you can be hypersensitive to interoception. You can be um, low registration for it, meaning, or low registration for it. So, meaning you're not recognizing those cues. So, what that would look like for kids with noticing potty cues. If they're hypersensitive, you might have a child who constantly says they have to go to the bathroom, where the first kind of hint that they have to go, they interpret it as I've got to go now, and they can't really tell the difference between like, no, I've got to go, but like I can hold it until we get to the bathroom, like in a couple minutes, versus when they really, really have to go. There's no kind of in between.
Um,
So they might frequently use that. Um, then there are kids which the kids who have more of a high threshold for interoception around potty cues are the ones that we usually see have potty accidents frequently, or near accidents, or maybe even like UTIs from holding it in, or bladder infections from holding it in. Um, and it's not necessarily that they're intentionally holding it in, it's that they're not recognizing that cue that they have to go. So for most of us, we can feel our bladders slowly start getting bigger. And as it gets like start to get fuller, we're like, I'm gonna have to go soon, but I can finish what I'm doing and then go. For those kids, they don't notice it until their bladder is like so full. Like there's nothing, 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 nothing. Then, oh my gosh, I have to go and I'm either going to pee in my pants or I'm just going to have to rush over there. So for those kids, we usually see a little bit more potty accidents in that regard. There's also kids who might have difficulty with interoception discrimination. So really, maybe they notice the cues, they feel something off in their body, but they might still need support, have a hard time with recognizing where those cues are coming from. So, like localizing it and then also interpreting it. So, sometimes these are things like my daughter will say her tummy hurts when she's hungry. Or they will say, like, I don't feel good, but it's that they have to pee. But they can't say that sensation right there means I have to pee, so I need to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
So there's a little bit of translation that needs to happen for some kids.
Yeah, I see that with I just left the classroom this year, but I was in the classroom for 25 years and we did a lot of potty training over the years. And I feel like a lot of my former students, especially 3 to 5 year olds, they really struggled with a lot of times you could get into the bathroom, sit on the toilet, but they didn't know what to do. And they
Yeah.
definitely could not recognize when
Yeah.
they had to go. Or, maybe they felt some sort of feeling that they couldn't express to us, but it was nothing that they connected. And I started making visual supports for potty training or for like the bathroom sequence. And I had to get custom clip art made because I was like, if we just show a picture of sitting on the toilet, they're they're going to think that's going
They're
potty,
doing it.
just
Right.
sitting there. Like I said, we need to have a boy standing in front of the toilet with pee going in.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
It's a little more concrete and able to
Mm-hmm.
kind of understand. And I need a picture of a poop in the toilet. Because if
Uh-huh.
we just show someone sitting on the toilet for both of those, then when we go and practice sitting, they
That's true.
think they did what
Yeah.
we wanted. They got the end result.
Yeah. And then there's also the component of Maybe they're receiving the cues or they're knowing it's time to go to the potty, but something about the bathroom environment is stressing them out for some reason, whether you can visibly see it or not. And it's kind of that like moment where, if you've ever had to share a stall with someone and you can't pee because they're there and you're like, I turn around, like I can't. And it's that like shyness, but just like you have to be relaxed to
Yes.
be able to relax the muscles to let go of both of those things. And so it's one thing to get them there, one thing to get them to sit, but if the lights are too bright, if the hum of the electricity is too loud, if the smells are too loud, if the echoes, if there's a previous bad experience and there's anything that's having their nervous system in this high alert stress fight or flight, the actual act of voiding the pee or the poop and putting it in the toilet can be hard. So we really like to have some sort of um, as much of a calming and regulating experience for
Yeah.
them as possible to help them relax those parts.
Can we also talk about when they started using automatic flushers,
Oh gosh,
how
I know.
difficult it is for our students? Because even in, we have in the building I worked in, we had little toilets that were kid height, but they had the automatic flushers. And we had to put over the sensor just a post-it and
Yes,
out
yes.
because kids have one bad experience. So you either have kids that love to flush, 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 love it. And then you have
Sure.
kids that
Yeah.
are so scared that they will never go back in
Yeah.
there if that thing flushes,
Yeah.
especially unexpectedly. And part of when I talk to people about this, identifying those things and making the bathroom comfortable. But if you know they don't like that automatic flusher, it's okay. Well, it doesn't even have to be an automatic one. It's okay to not flush. We can teach that
Yeah.
later. Let's just, they
Yep.
don't have to flush. They can just leave it. We can flush it later. We'll address
Yep.
that when they're older.
Yep, I agree. Even my daughter has made so much progress with her feeling more regulated around sounds and knowing her limits and knowing what to ask for, but flushing the toilets are still
Mhm.
tricky in like more of the public toilet setting areas.
Yeah.
And I get it. They're quite loud and they go on and the
Yes.
echoes, like it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Oh, such good things to think about too. What else, what other areas do you see? We talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but what else does interoception touch at the preschool level for kids? What other
Yeah,
differences?
so we talked a little bit about pottying and I talked about emotion, but another big area is eating and feeding,
Mm,
right? So, again, for most of us, we can start to notice I am hungry. You've heard people say, I'm not that hungry, but I could eat. Or it's like, I'm not
mm,
full, I'm not stuffed, but there's room in my tummy to have some food. Um, or you could say, um, you know, I'm starting to get hungry. I need to wrap up my work right now so I could plan to cook food so I can eat by a time that I'm going to be hungry. It allows you to plan for it. Kids with a hypersensitive sensation around feeding or hunger, hypersensitive to that part of interoception, they may be grazing constantly because as soon as they feel hungry, they have to eat. But then also, as soon as they feel full, they're way stuffed. They can't tolerate maximum fullness and they can't tolerate like being hungry. As soon as they feel something, they feel discomfort and they want food. And then they're like, oh, I think I'm full now. And so they just like, they kind of graze quite often. Then there are lots of clients I've worked with who parents are like, my kid never says they're hungry. Like they will eat, but they've never come to me and said, I want a snack. I'm hungry. And they say, I just have to feed them around like a mealtime schedule, or I go off of their behavior and I can tell when they start to get hangry and dysregulated, oh, they didn't eat enough at lunch. I've got to give them a snack. But
mm.
their child is not really recognizing the hunger cues. And then also similarly, the fullness cues, some kids will eat until they're sick. Of course, there's a tangled piece there that could come with eating disorders and pieces that you need to figure out too that are not always related to interoception. Sometimes there's more of a psychological component to it. But if we're talking about interoception and you know that your child has patterns of interoception challenges, then yeah, they could be overeating because they're not recognizing their fullness cues at all.
Yeah. I think the big thing I'm learning today is over the years, I've learned about sensory and how you can be hyposensitive or hypersensitive to certain things. And it's kind of the same with interoception. I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think of potty training in the kids that maybe are asking to go use the bathroom all the time, like often, often, often. It seems for some kids, it gets blamed on, well, they just want to get out of doing this or they want to go do something else. And maybe it's they're extra sensitive to that feeling and they
Yeah.
think I have to go right now. So, and same with
Yeah, I
super
I
great.
agree. I think that for we've all mastered our top 5 sensory systems now. Almost everybody knows the main 5 sensory systems. And I would say even more, a lot of people now recognize sensory needs to move,
Mhm.
like to get big body movements, so the proprioception and vestibular, but interoception is the last one for people to really recognize and get on board with. It is so discreet because no one can see it, and it's so disguised as behavior. So when we're
Totally.
relating to hunger, pottying, like you said, emotional regulation, first thing people think of is top-down approaches and behavioral approaches, helping them problem solve through their anger,
Mhm.
helping them use a potty schedule, helping them use a break pass to go outside for this, when it's really, no, there is it is a sensory component, but it's interoception based. So it's definitely a hidden gem, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad more people are talking about it.
Yeah. And how can we work on those kind of things? Because they seem very internal, so how do you teach
Yes.
something like that?
It is a really tricky thing to teach.
Mhm.
And I will give all the credit to Kelly Mahler, if anyone's listening and hasn't heard of her. Her last name is Mahler. I believe she created a curriculum for therapists that are
Mm,
full of activities on how to help. But the main gist of it is the first step is helping your child actually become aware of those sensations and notice those sensations.
yeah.
um that's going to be step one, is helping them notice it. So maybe the next time they independently say they have to pee, you can stop them and say, wait, how do you know you have to pee? What's
Mm,
telling you? Where do you feel it in your body? And if they point to anywhere, even if they're pointing to their knee, whatever they say, we're going to say, great, now you know when you feel something there, it means you have to pee. We're not going to correct them and say, no, don't you feel it here? Because we all experience interoception differently. We probably have some similarities in how we experience hunger, but like anxiety, frustration, anger, even potty cues, especially if it's a child with low registration, they might feel that they have to potty like in their back or
mhm.
whatever, right? So we just say, how did you know you had to go to the potty? Or how did you know you were hungry? Where did you feel it? Maybe they localize it, they point to it, and we keep getting that down. And then same thing, how did you know you were full? How did you know you were hungry? I wonder. They might not answer it right away, but you might just say, I wonder where you noticed it. I notice it here in my body. Um, so noticing is the first step, and then being able to help them um, create more of a plan of what they need.
Mhm.
And then what happens after, right? So that potty thing, that's how you know you felt it right here where you pointed. And you said it felt like a balloon was really big. So however they describe it, we're
Yeah.
using their words, and then we say, and then you peed, and then now what are you noticing? I don't notice nothing, or see what they notice, or I notice I can jump faster now. Oh, cool. So and like we're piecing it together. So next time I see you point to your knees, or next time I see you wiggle your knees, I'm going to know that that means you have to go to the potty. So it's whatever signal they're telling us. Then later, much down the line, you might say, now you can use a bathroom pass, or you can raise your hand and say you have to go to the bathroom. But I would very much stay present in the how they want to describe it, noticing it, and trying to piece the regulatory action that helped eliminate that sensation. Right. So I
Yeah.
notice you have a red face because Jimmy took your blocks. So I'm not saying I know you're mad, I know you're sad. I'm saying your face was really red. I wonder what you noticed. Oh, my face was so hot. Oh, I know that feeling so well. Um, would you like an ice pack for your face? You want to go outside in the cool air? And so it's not, let's go outside to calm down. Let's
Mhm.
go take a breath and relax. It's let's go make your face not so hot. So then we can kind of regulate that sensation, and then we're regulating the body, and then the emotions follow. And that
Yeah.
is such a tangible regulation strategy, rather than let's go calm down
Yeah.
over like an
And
emotion kind of thing.
kind of telling them how they feel. And,
Exactly.
you're
So I
you're
focus
avoiding
on
that.
the body sensations. I wonder how you're feeling. I notice your fists are so tight. I notice that your fingers are getting really, really white. I
Mm,
notice that your chest is going so fast. Can I feel your heart? I love talking about heartbeat because it's the easiest one to kind of manipulate and make it go faster by doing like jumping jacks. And then they can immediately see how it can slow down if you have them take really slow breaths. And then you're like, whoa, you made your heartbeat really slow. And then the
yeah.
next time, if they're anxious or angry, you might have them check in with their heart and say, it is beating fast. What was that thing that we did last time that made our heart beat really slow? So we're not, again, not saying don't worry about it. You're panicking. Don't panic. We're saying your heart's beating fast. How can we get your heartbeat to slow down? And that's like really the building blocks to self-regulation, I think.
Yeah. I think this information too is really great for parents because I feel like so many parents of young autistic kids, of course, everyone wants their kids potty trained. It's easier, it's less expensive, that kind of thing.
Yeah, of
But
course.
learning about interoception might give them a why it's not happening as fast as they want it to.
Hmm.
And, you know, for some kids, maybe it's not going to happen until they're 5. And it just gives
Hmm.
you the child's not being lazy, the parent is not doing it wrong. It's
Yep.
because of this sensation. And we can
Yep.
work on lots of kind of other readiness skills to get kids
Hmm.
prepared for when they are ready to start using the toilet. Things
Yep.
like pulling pants up and down, all of those kind of things. So there's plenty of things we can work on before actually
Yeah,
eliminating in the toilet.
exactly. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, hopefully that'll make parents feel a little bit better, you know? So switching gears a little bit and talking, I know we've talked a little sensory throughout, but sensory supports for autistic children at the preschool level. And I think we've all heard the term sensory diet. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, and so this term has kind of transformed throughout the years. A lot of people now call it a sensory lifestyle. I've heard
Mm,
of some people call it a sensory support plan. But the idea is that you have this child in front of you that has a very specific set of sensory needs, and they might have a mix of needs. They might need more of something, and they might need less of the other. And they could need those things at different times of the day because some sensory strategies can help make you more alert and better able to focus and participate. And some sensory strategies are going to help you wind down and calm the nervous system, which you need at other times of the day. So, the idea of a sensory lifestyle is that you understand the child's specific needs and you have a curated toolbox of strategies and support tools that you know works for the child, and you are proactively and consistently offering it to the child so that it helps bring their nervous system back to a regulated state, or at least remain in a regulated state for as much as possible, because it's much easier to set up a nervous system for regulation than it is to pull it out of dysregulation. So the more we can be proactive with it and
mm,
provide it to them daily, um, you're going to have more benefits out of that.
100%. It's so much easier to help a child with these things when you are keeping them out of the complete dysregulation meltdown, because coming back after that can be really difficult.
Yeah, and it can be counterintuitive for some parents, especially depending on the behavior because they're thinking, well, I don't like that he jumps. Like he shouldn't be jumping that much. So if I encourage him to jump, isn't that just going to make him jump more? And so
Mhm.
it's really counterintuitive to want to just completely eliminate a like sensory seeking behavior or regulatory behavior rather than leaning into it and providing them more of it more intermittently throughout their day and actually noticing that they'll have more adaptive and more functional and successful behaviors in their day.
Yeah. And I have a question for you about the home setting, but I feel like it's pretty similar, developing some kind of sensory support plan or sensory diet for home. Kind of same thing, identifying the things that help your child and trying to use them proactively.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. So you really want to start with observing your child. And I know we literally observe our child every day, but actually step back and pretend like you're a scientist and just taking data, taking notes, and writing down What are the behaviors and actions and movements that your child tends to do? And are those actions making them more regulated and better able to participate in the activity, or is it taking away from it? And notice I'm not saying is a certain action making them calmer or not calm, because there's some activities where you need them to be moving around and active, and that would be considered regulated for that particular environment.
Mm.
Like if they were playing soccer or if they're on the playground, right? I would say a regulated child might be playing on the sand or on a playground structure, trying different things, maybe even playing by themselves, versus a child sitting next to you, like shaking and like clinging to you. That might be a little bit more dysregulated, even though they could seem more calm and subdued. So notice the actions that your child is gravitating towards, whether it's movements, something they're doing with their hands, something they're doing with their voice, any kind of behavioral observation, and notice if there is a pattern in terms of sounds, sights, smells, movements with their body, and how that is linked to what the behavior is. Do they seem to be moving more in control of their body and voice? Are they a little bit less in control of their body and the voice? And then from there, say, okay, I notice when they're playing with sand in the shade, that feels really regulating for them. They're calm. They can do that for hours. They're able to listen to me for the rest of the day. I'm going to put sand as one of my sensory tools and make sure that my child gets access to sand in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. I noticed my child loves hanging upside down from monkey bars, and I can't stand that. But after we go to the park and they hang on the monkey bars, they sat through dinner. Okay, maybe something about hanging upside down makes my child's body feel regulated. I need to find a way to put up something where he can hang upside down at home. So it's kind of starting with the clues. Our kids are giving us the clues. It can just feel really hard to decode what they mean, but they're telling us what they need. We just really, really need to be good at observing. And like, that's why I call them sensory detectives. That's why my boot camp is called Sensory Detectives Boot Camp, because I really, really think people need to start thinking like detectives and picking up the clues and piecing it together, so that these parents can start doing it for themselves rather than having to go through like a laundry list of like, 100 heavy work ideas to regulate your child, because that might not work for your child. So it's more important for parents to understand the clues that their kids are leaving for them.
So it's called the Sensory Detective Boot Camp? Is that what
Sensory
you
Detectives Boot Camp.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an awesome resource for parents. I'm gonna link it
Yes.
in the show notes here too, and so you
Great.
see all the info. What other
Yeah.
things do you have? I saw you have courses and guides, and what
Yeah.
would be the best place to start for somebody that's seeking support with the sensory system?
Yeah. So I have a free download called Sensory Profiles 101, and it's not really like so it's not a diagnostic or checklist, but it's really just a list of really common behaviors you might see for different sensory profiles. So what you might see for a sensory seeker, what you might see for a sensory sensitive child, what you might see for a sensory low registration child, to give you a better sense of what you might see going on. And then with that information, if you have a sensory sensitive child, I have a resource on for kids who have a hard time getting dressed, wearing different clothes, which is something I struggled with my daughter
Yeah.
for a while. But if you have a sensory seeker or just anyone with kind of really big emotions, my Sensory Detectives Boot Camp is probably the best place for people. But the best place to start is really understanding their sensory profile. So that free download, I think, is going to be great. And I think I gave you the URL, right? I think it's theotbutterfly.com/sensory profiles 101.
Yeah, I'll make
If I
sure
have
that
that
I
right.
have it so I can link it. So,
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And you also have a children's book. And if you're watching on
I
YouTube, I
do.
have it right here.
Yay, you have
And it's
it.
called A Kid's Book About Neurodiversity. And it is
Yay.
awesome. So much good information in here. I could see every, at least elementary level classroom, but I
Hmm.
think even middle school. Um, this would be a great book to read, especially with Autism Acceptance Month coming up.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
where can people get this?
I think you can just go to Amazon is going to be the most global distribution area, but I think they're not in all countries yet. But certainly, at least in Canada, UK, US, and I heard Australia,
Awesome.
Amazon carries it. So yeah, you could just search it there. So thank you so much for
Awesome.
supporting that.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm so happy to have a copy now, and I'll
Yay.
start talking about it. It's great. Well, we kind of talked, where can everybody find you, Laura?
The best place to find me is on Instagram. I hang out there all the time. So that's at the OT Butterfly. But my website is also theotbutterfly.com. And I also have a podcast called Sensory Wise Solutions Podcast for Parents. But first place to go is Instagram. That's where I'm at
And
daily.
find all your things there. Oh,
Yep.
thank you
Yep.
so much. I learned so much about myself talking to you,
Yay.
and so many things popped into my mind for former students. So I know both parents and educators are really going to learn a lot from this episode, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for inviting me.